Hi everyone, good morning. Welcome to the new episode of Liv Sattviko Talks, taking Indian brands global. Hey Rick, good morning. How are you?
Good morning to you. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. How is everyone at home?
Everyone at home is good. It's a beautiful day in sunny Colorado, and I'm so happy to be a part of this.
Awesome. So viewers, I'll quickly introduce Mr. Rick Haxton and then we'll take the conversation forward. So we have today with us Mr. Rick Haxton from the United States, who is a passionate entrepreneur and the CEO of CPG Success. After working with some large corporates for more than 4 decades, he started his own food brokerage company in the name of CPG Success. He is an expert in sales, merchandising, and category management to lead the profitable sales growth. He has a rich experience in handling large accounts such as Walmart, Walgreens, Target, HEB, and many more. He graduated from Kansas State University in the field of marketing. So happy to have you, sir, on the session.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be a part of this.
Awesome. So, being a business graduate with emphasis in marketing, what inspired you to enter into the food business and start your own food broking company?
So I began my career in the food industry really at the age of 16, where there was a local grocery store that was a couple blocks from my house, and my parents shopped there for many years. And so I started out at 16 and kind of learned how things worked at store level, and began developing an understanding of how the supply chain and how it worked, and then about 3 of my years in college. So I really had that experience. And then in 1980, worked for one of the largest food companies in the U.S. by the name of Kraft Foods. And I began my career and started out with them for about 10.5 years, had multiple positions and multiple locations throughout the Midwest of the Southern U.S. And then over the next 20 plus years, I was involved in sales with companies like Borden, Sargento, Land O'Lakes, and several smaller specialty brands. So then finally in December of 2017, I ventured out and started my own business and development consulting company because I wanted to focus on helping companies launch and expand distribution within the US market.
Awesome. So, the kind of experience which you have got in the food business, how do you look at the changing food landscape in the US?
I have worked in the food industry beginning at the age of 16. There was a little local grocery chain that was down the street from where I lived, and my parents had shopped there for many years. And so I began at the age of 16, learned how things worked at store level, developed an understanding of the supply chain and how it worked. It was very beneficial, and I did that for about 5 years, the remaining part of my high school, as well as 3 years of college. And then I got my first entry into consumer products industry from a sales and marketing perspective in 1982. I went to work for Kraft Foods, and during my tenure with Kraft Foods, I had the opportunity to call on various chains and held many different positions over the 10.5 years that I did that. And then over the next 20 years, I was involved in growing sales and partnering with such brands as Borden, Sargento, Land O'Lakes, and several smaller specialty brands. It really wasn't until December of 2017 that I ventured out to start my own business development and consulting business because I wanted to focus on helping companies launch and expand distribution in the US market.
Wow, that's a pretty great experience, and I'm sure that would be really helpful for the emerging brands to take that big step in the US. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Great. So, since you have a diversified experience in the CPG industry there, how do you look at the changing food landscape in the US?
So the overall landscape has changed a lot, especially over the last year and a half with COVID, but
Mhm.
it was changing prior to that. The landscape within food has changed significantly as consumers have shifted, looking for more convenience. So online shopping has grown significantly, and more customers are more health conscious today than ever before. Also, social media and influencers have played a very big role in the consumer product sections.
Great, great. So, I mean, since being the CEO of CPG Success, and I mean, you have built it from scratch, where do you see CPG Success going forward in the next 5 years?
So over the next 5 years, I see CPG expanding into multiple categories with an expanded network of sales and marketing personnel to help further support either the launch or expanded distribution in North America. In addition, the sales and marketing support, I am currently working on a 3PL warehouse in the central part of the U.S. that can provide warehouse space and logistics to help support clients' needs to create a full service operation. Social media is another piece that's going to become a very active piece of that in defining what makes the brand different. The key pieces are what makes the brand different. Pause.
Sure. So, coming down to my next question, I mean, what points should Indian brands consider while competing with global brands on the international platform, especially in the mainstream retail?
So it's a interesting question, and it's one that a lot of companies don't take the time to think about. So it is a very important piece. What makes a brand different, and what is it currently offering in the marketplace that the product is being launched into? So what's different about the product that makes it unique, and so that it's not just another Me Too item. And in regard to planning the support launch within a market and marketing support to educate the consumer, these are very key pieces. So you need to have a social media platform. You need to be influencers that are out there talking to their network about who's supporting, engaging them and getting them to understand, because we're in a whole different environment and social media
Right.
is such an important part of that. And then being able to go in and have the ability to develop programs specific to the individual retailer, because that's the other piece that gets them fully engaged. So between social media and getting a part of their programs, that helps to make a successful launch.
Awesome. Awesome. So, if I were to ask you your two, I mean, if I were to ask you your two long-term goals, what would they be?
So when I started thinking about this in regard to what my long term goal is, and I still plan on being in the industry for quite a while. So
Absolutely.
I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. But there's two long term goals. I'm very family oriented. So number one, the long term goal is that when I do retire, is that I can turn the business over to one of my kids to keep that business going forward. So I'm looking at it from a long term perspective. Secondly, I want to build the business to such a level that I'm able to share my proceeds with those in need of assistance.
Wow. Great. Uh, Going forward, what opportunities do you see for the plant-based foods globally?
So when it comes to and I alluded to this earlier, I mean, there's a whole change in regard to the consumer today. So one is you have an increase in number of vegan consumers, and that trend continues to see plant-based products continue to increase in sales and volume significantly over the next 5 to 10 years.
Great, great. So, one personal question. I mean, of course, as we understand that fitness is a part and parcel of life, and I believe you also practice exercise on an everyday basis. So
Right.
based on that, how do you see the increasing trend of yoga in the US? And I mean, based on that, what suggestions would you like to give to the young entrepreneurs who are, I mean, now currently under tremendous stress and they are pretty ambitious? So, I mean, how exercise or fitness can really help them?
So I think I'm a little. I'm not saying I'm too old for yoga, but I'm not quite as limber yet for that whole process. But
Yeah,
when you look at some kind of exercise, whether it's yoga, whether it's walking, whether it's running, whether it's weightlifting, is very important today in order to keep your mind and body fresh.
sure.
Because this is such a fast-paced industry that within consumer products, it's extremely important, especially with all the pressures that are out there in the world that we are part of today. So exercises is key to helping that. And when you look at insights for young entrepreneurs, the thing I would say is don't ever give up on your dream, because there are going to be
Well
good
said.
days and there are going to be difficult days. But
Right,
through perseverance, the difficult days will become less and less.
right, right. Well said. That's well said. Great. So, I mean, going forward, a question on how can a brand think of which countries to initially target with? So, what would be your take on that? I mean, what point should be considered by a new age brand who initially wants to decide that which countries should they target initially?
So I think there are basically 4 points at this point that I would say is:
Sure.
first, you need to understand the market and the trends within that market. So it's very important that you do your homework. Secondly, understand the pricing of the competitive items within the market to know if it's profitable to introduce your product into the market. Many people come in and have one perception in regard to what they want to sell at and haven't done their homework, and then when they find out that they have to have a better price than what they originally had anticipated, it cuts into their overall profit margin. So it's very important that you do your research, understand the logistics of getting into a country,
True.
and one is that is knowing how you're going to distribute the products once the product gets there. So whether it's through a distributor network or whether it's through a warehouse, you need to have that piece in place. And then last piece is understand any and all government regulations and special certifications needed for your product to be able to be launched into that particular country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. I think that's pretty insightful. Thanks.
Thank you.
So, coming down to my last question for the session, how do you see the scope of increasing e-commerce going forward in the international market?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of international markets that are further more advanced than what we. I mean, you get into China and you get into Japan, and some of those Asian countries are a little bit further along in the e-commerce piece of it. The U.S. is getting stronger. I know Amazon is, they're a monster, and I
Right.
mean, it's one of those that you got to be a part of.
Absolutely.
But I think what happened was that when COVID happened a year and a half ago, it changed not only people that I mean are used to buying via e-commerce, but it increased their. So you have your, your millennials, your Generation X and Y that dominate the market, that were already buying a lot of stuff via
Right.
e-commerce. But then also, what happened is that you had a lot of your baby boomers in the U.S. that were still going to retail, that they couldn't go to retail, so they had to shift their buying pattern from going to the store to buying via e-commerce, and they found out how easy it was to do
Right.
so. I know that because I could share with you that for years I loved just going to Walmart and walking around the store. Well, COVID changed my buying habit to where my wife would always say, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "I don't know. I just like to get out and get the exercise and see what's out
Yeah.
there and see what's new." But it changed the way that I shopped, so that now it's I go online. I go to the store that's close to my house. I go on. I pick out the items I want. I pull my car up. They bring the stuff out, they put it in my trunk, and they bring it home. So
Right.
the whole e-commerce thing has just exploded in the U.S. And a lot of that was driven by COVID, and the way it's changed the way people are buying. So they're focusing on convenience and time saving, and
Right.
I don't see it slowing down. I see it
Hmm.
continuing to have double-digit growth.
Right. Right. Awesome. So, I mean, thank you so much for your time and the kind of responses which you have given. I mean, that would be really helpful for the emerging brands who wish to now enter the United States market. So, thank you so much once again and really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Anytime.